All right. Well, welcome everyone. Welcome one and all to Impolite Company on the GCPR.live network, the show where we do what they say not to do. We talk about religion and politics. I'm your host, Matthew Best. Together we walk through honest dialogue and explore messy truths and try to see the humanity and perspective different folks have to offer. So if you have a thought, you have a question or something you want to bring up, you can email me at contactimpolitecompany@gmail.com. And don't forget, you can subscribe to past and future episodes on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, YouTube, wherever you get your podcasts. Just search for Impolite Company, look for a logo. And if you want to dig deeper into the themes that we explore, you can go to my blog at pastormatthewbest.com. And if you appreciate what we do, you can support the show, buymeacoffee.com at Impolite Company. So let's get into today's conversation. I am so pleased to welcome the Reverend Angela Zimman, who was ordained as a pastor serving in the ELCA in 1999, and since that time she has served in Southeast Michigan also as a missionary in Israel and Palestine territories, as the Vice President of Institutional Advancement and interim president at United Lutheran Seminary, and is currently in her 5th year as Vice President for Institutional Advancement at Wilson College in Chambersburg, I believe. And Angela and her husband, Martin, are the parents of 2 adult children, and they live in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, with 3 beloved dogs and 2 special cats. I love that end of that introduction. Angela, welcome. Thanks so much for... Wonderful. Thank you so much for coming on. And I've been looking forward to actually having you come on the show for some time. You're in that rare club of pastors who have also run for office. Last year I had the opportunity to talk with our colleague, George Scott, and we had a wonderful conversation about religion and politics, and and I have a background in politics, and so it's this. We have this small little club that's we've been in 2 crazy type of things. So maybe you could share maybe a little bit about your journey from politics into the pulpit and also international ministry. What took you on that journey? Yeah, sure. Yeah. Right.
for a while now, but so I jumped into that race, and it was an amazing experience. I learned so much, and was really, really grateful for the connections I made and the people who helped and showed me the ropes as a real newbie to that level of politics. I was familiar and comfortable in the local politics. I was um, not I don't want to say I wasn't prepared, because I don't know that there's any way to fully prepare. I think we just have to jump in.
Right.
But I wasn't savvy about national politics so much. But I learned a great deal, and I'm grateful for that opportunity, because it helped me um, understand that our faith is lived out all over the place, and we and there are very very easy ways to be a public figure and still um, and and still be a faithful pastor. So people would always mention that, but it's faith and politics have to mix, because life is politics. So
Yeah.
and I can talk more and more about that,
Yeah.
but is it good?
Right.
Years fall off.
Well, it's an interesting statement too that you just finished up with, is that the idea of faith and politics have to mix, right? That's a controversial statement. I certainly understand it, and I would agree that I've always talked about the idea of religion and politics are very similar, in the sense that they both offer very similar things. There's a sense of some identity. There's a sense of belonging to something bigger. They're both casting visions of a possible future. They both have like sacred scripture. They both have sacred sites. They, all the stuff that's in. They have origin stories and myth and all that type of stuff. And so, how could things that are so similar in that way not intermix? And of course, there's a healthy way and an unhealthy way to have that, right? So I'm curious too, like, you've run for office, you've been a pastor for a long time. What have those experiences taught you about, I guess, kind of the moral, spiritual state of not only the people, but what do you think of like America or American politics and kind of over this time period? Because you're talking about 15 so years. How have you kind of seen that?
Well, it's really tough, because I think we live in a culture of finger pointing, right?
Yeah.
And judgment, and unkindness, really, really unkindness. Um, and thinking about right now this meme that we've all seen going around, right? Um, and the meme of the CEO
Oh,
with
right.
right, right. So we all have seen this CEO. I think his name is Andrew Byron, and his HR manager, who it appears they were having an
Right.
inappropriate hug at a Coldplay concert, and so now it's turned into this meme.
Right.
And I just want to. I think where we're running into issues because two wrongs don't make a right.
Right.
So obviously, what they were doing was not right. But when we start to vilify him and put all these pictures on Facebook, and we're turning it into a joke and a meme and all of this, that also doesn't help the situation.
Yeah.
And that's so much of what I see from both Democrats and just Republicans in today's world. That there's just a lot of unkindness. There's just an awful lot of people who are being judgmental and unkind, and we have real violence and things happening in our world
Yeah.
today, real violence, and issues that are enormous. And I'm not in any way, shape, or form saying ignore those. Say, oh
Right.
well, it's fine, just be nice, it's okay.
Right.
You know, if this violence happens, that's okay, just be nice. That's not what I'm saying.
Right.
But I think at the base level, I think in our day-to-day life, um, we should just try to be more kind to each other. And I work in philanthropy,
Right.
Right. And I think we can be more generous with the way we interact with one another,
Mm.
more kind and more compassionate. And, when someone cuts ahead of you in traffic, my first instinct is, you want to raise your fist or raise your
Yeah.
arm. And I
Right.
think, that's not a generous approach. I mean,
Hmm.
a generous approach would be to slow down, let the person go. We don't know what's happening in their lives.
Right.
Let them be. And so to approach, I think in America we and so I can't change huge policies. I can work to do that. I can make efforts, and I don't want to say I'm helpless. But I think what I can do, what all of us can do today, tomorrow, every day, is just be generous and kind to the people around us. And no one's going to listen to someone that isn't kind to them. So if we want people to hear our messages, we need to act with compassionate hearts.
When you were talking about that, I was thinking of your example of the driving. I've really noticed this lately. Not that driving was ever super great, but it feels as though, and maybe this is just maybe I'm more aware of it, of like, boy, there's a lot of people that are inconsiderate drivers, I guess, right?
Hostility out there.
There's a lot of hostility. That's a great way to put it, right? And I think part of this kind of gets into the notion of the anonymity. When you're behind the wheel of a car, you're kind of anonymous, even though people can see your face, but you're not really interacting with somebody. And you're not going to see that person again. All this type of stuff. And the thing, you were talking about the meme. Again, it's this anonymous, like social media has this anonymous sense about it, which kind of lowers the inhibitions, that we just say whatever and just let the emotions kind of take over as opposed to dealing with them in a healthy way. I know, I don't know if you knew that. So I worked for a member of Congress.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So back in 98, 99. And it was my first job out of college. And that was, of course, during the Clinton impeachment time.
Oh, right.
Yeah, so first job going in, and then all of a sudden there's an impeachment, a presidential impeachment, which was quite an experience, is the best way to describe it. I've always kind of been very careful with it. I worked for a moderate Republican,
Okay.
and he was on the Ways and Means Committee. Great guy, cared about labor issues. Was not kind of into the whole culture war thing and all this. Did not want to deal with this whole thing. Learned a lot of amazing lessons from him, and at the same time watched all of this unfold. Where there's this presidential impeachment going on, and the it was vicious back and forth. And at the same time, then the Speaker of the House, Newt Gingrich, ended up resigning because he was doing the same thing. And then the Speaker designate, Bob Livingston, he resigned because he got caught doing the same thing before he even became the Speaker. And then that's when Denny Hastert came in, who later also resigned for doing terrible things, would come out later. And it's just like, wow, like seeing all that kind of unfold, there's this, it kind of reminds me of when the temple or the religious authorities want to stone, what is it, the prostitute, stone the woman, and for adultery, not a prostitute. And Jesus bends down, lowers the temperature, and says, let he who is without sin cast the first stone, right? And I just think, wow, gosh, if we only would listen, it would be far far different. For how politics, I don't know if you get this sense, but I feel like politics has turned into this something more than about policy, but now we've almost turned it into this gamification of, right, we've got teams, and our team has to win, otherwise we've gotten to this point of people are going to die, whether that's true or not. I don't know that that's really helpful. Um, and this isn't anything new. I think this has been building for some time. What do you have thoughts about that?
I mean, I guess what exact what exactly are you asking? Sorry, I'm trying to.
Yeah, I just like the way that politics has kind of turned into this kind of all or nothing,
Right, right.
um,
Yeah, yeah.
which I know there's always been this element of that in one sense, but in another,
It feels, I mean, I grew up with my parents. My mom was a Republican, my dad is a Democrat,
hmm
right? And so they would go cancel each other out, I think, in every presidential
yeah,
election. Um, and the conversation around, why were you a Republican? Why were you a Democrat?
yeah,
Where could you meet? Where could you find common ground to move things forward? And politics, being the art of the possible,
yeah,
as opposed to the perfect. So everybody compromises a little bit. Nobody gets everything they want.
right,
But now it feels like if you compromise, you're somehow a loser, right?
yeah,
You have to have it all your own way, or you're a loser, you're weak, you have to be tough and stand up and get everything. And I don't think that's the way we're called to be as Christians, or as humans.
yeah,
We to live in community, and that's where the politics comes out. I mean, the word politics comes from polis,
right,
which means city, right?
right,
And so when we say it's political, really, politics is about people working together and
yep,
serving the community. So anytime people are together and working in community, there's politics involved. So even if you take the whole partisanship out and the whole, voting and Democrats, Republicans, and all that out, a church is a political organization. Even if nobody, a church is a political organization everywhere because it's people trying
right,
to work together and accomplish something.
right,
So we can say electoral politics. I mean, you could say, well, we don't want electoral politics in church. And I understand, where people are coming from and why they're saying that. And I think a lot of times when someone says that, my response is, well, talk to me, tell me more about that. Why is
right,
that? And have you had a bad experience? Do you, what? And a lot of times, what I would hear people say is, I'm just tired of it.
yeah,
I just want to come to church on Sunday morning and not have to think about that.
yeah.
And
Which I get, and at the same time, boy, that's also kind of a little bit of a little sense of it's a privilege to not have to think about it.
right,
Um, because there's people who can't, right? I, you
right.
know,
You have to think about it if it's going to impact your life. And
right,
I think what I'm seeing, and I'll give you an example of someone I know who is um, a woman who she is a recent graduate of the school where I work and Wilson, and she's Puerto Rican. So she's American citizen. She moved here as a Puerto Rican from Puerto Rico when she was a young child. But of course, Puerto Rico is us.
right,
We're able to vote. Um, and she has been a fundamentalist Christian in some ways, and pretty conservative. But suddenly she's experiencing uh, the terrors of am I going to be mistaken for someone who is illegal? Are
yeah,
people that I know and love going to be considered illegals? I was born in Puerto Rico. I'm an American. What is happening here? Why are these people leaving? I voted for you, right? I mean, I voted for conservatives. I voted for Donald Trump, or and now this is happening. I don't know that she voted for Donald Trump, but I do know that I hear this is
right,
this is
right,
happening. And I think people are starting to, as you said, um, you can't ignore it. When you can't ignore it for 1 second because you might get taken on your way to church.
right, right,
It's I think we need to realize that, like Dietrich Bonhoeffer
Yeah.
And it's not about partisan politics. It's not
Right.
about I'm a Democrat. I can point to a billion things the Democrats have done
Right.
that have been so problematic. Um, and but I think that when and we have Republicans who are crossing the aisle to vote against the dominant Republican narrative because they too are. It's about humanity.
Right.
It's not about am I an E or an R?
Right. Yeah, absolutely. Which kind of leads me to I was thinking about the recent ruling by the IRS,
Yeah.
right? For people to understand, this is not a general ruling that changes across the board for all churches. It was specifically for those that were involved in the lawsuit. But it was the IRS saying, yes, these churches can endorse candidates during a worship service because they're having essentially a family conversation in that worship. And I saw that and I thought, well, that's going to backfire. Um, I like that. I remember reading something about this of, people are looking at this saying, oh, churches are going to be able to do X, Y, and Z. They're going to be able to say this, that, and the other thing. And I thought, this Johnson Amendment, which has been this restriction on churches doing this, has actually been a protection for churches, so that they're not caught up in the partisan battles that go back and forth. Because otherwise, if you're not endorsing candidate X, there could be repercussions for you. Like that's how I look at it at the Johnson Amendment. Is it's been a protection for churches from feeling this kind of pressure to essentially endorse the empire or whatever you want to, however you want to call it in that. Have you had thoughts about this IRS ruling, and where do you think this is going? I mean, I'm not going to hold you to that, so don't worry about that.
Absolutely. I think it is concerning
Yeah.
because the crux. I think what we should be talking about in church when it comes to politics are policies.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so, what are good policies? What are policies? We have our statements, our church's social statements, and we believe in policies that should mirror those social statements and help to accomplish those social statements. I don't really, I want those social statements and I want good policies for people, and I don't really care who brings them to the floor to vote for them. I mean, if it's a Republican or a Green Party or an Independent, whoever's bringing it to the floor, if it's policies that are helping humanity and help this world, God's creation, then I'm all in favor of it. So I don't think that the churches are really concerned in talking about policies. This IRS ruling opens the door for really, as you kind of alluded, it doesn't say it specifically, but it opens the door to candidate endorsements.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
actually speaking about what candidate do we want to vote for, not do we want to support do we want to support someone who values making sure that Social Security is fully funded.
Right. Right.
No, you want to vote for Joe Smith or whatever, and that's problematic. That's
Well, and it also gets into this issue of, now are we saying that God is endorsing a candidate X, and if you don't follow that vote, then you're being heretical, and like we already got plenty of churches that have issues with being abusive and how you got to do this or else type of thing, and I just see a lot of problematic things about that.
for sure. I think so 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 much of that is yeah. It's a very slippery slope, and it God clearly has a policy position. He has
Yeah.
a policy position, and
Right.
the policy position is love your neighbor as
Yep.
yourself.
Yep.
Treat people, treat people well. Love them
Uh
from
huh.
your heart. Love me, love your neighbor. Fine, that's God's policy. How you protect everything else, um, either support that or undermine it. That's what we're trying to figure out all the time.
Yeah.
But God does not have a candidate.
Right.
And so I think saying God has this policy position, and then it's up to you as an individual to
Right.
never perfect in my life.
Right.
They're all going to have flaws. It's human nature.
That's for
But
sure.
which one is going to best support God's policy?
Yeah.
Anyway,
Yeah.
that's
Yeah.
my rant. So,
It's real easy topics, right? Yeah, so before we continue, I want to take a brief moment of some pause to share a couple things about things that I hold near and dear to my heart. First, Christ Lutheran Church here in Ellison Hill in Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. It's where I serve as pastor, and it's more than a congregation, it's a healing community where we host 3 free clinics that have welcomed over 100,000 visits since 2018. And if you want to be a part of something beautiful, something healing, then you can check us out at christharrisburg.org. We are certainly a poor congregation, and but have a huge mission, and so we appreciate any support that people can offer. Second, Memorial Blanket Project. Every year, people from all over the country, and in fact, we've had blankets from Australia and Germany. People make blankets and quilts for complete strangers. We turn them into a massive art installation that draws attention to homelessness, and then we give all the blankets away. We've been doing this will be the 5th year now. We've done this on the U.S. Capitol lawn at the Liberty Bell. This year we're going out to Denver in the heart of the cold of winter, the longest night. You can learn more at memorialblanket.org. And finally, if you're wrestling with the heartbreak of gun violence, you can check out American Roulette. It's a novel that sparks honest conversations without giving any easy answers. It's all about focusing on the humanity, and all the proceeds go to organizations working to prevent gun violence, and you can find that wherever books are found. So now back into the conversation. I want to turn to you spent time in the Holy Land, in Israel and Palestine, and I've never actually had a conversation with you about this. So, what it's a complex thing, and we could probably have spent the whole thing, right? And we've been talking about religion and politics, and I'm just wondering. You've been in a place where there have been literally lots of violence and horrible things have happened in the name of God, in the name of country, in the name of all sorts of things. Are there lessons that you learned during your time there that you think are applicable here?
I think there are always there. I mean, that's a broad
Yeah.
question. The answer is of course, yes. I think that first of all, when people think of the Holy Land and think of Israel, and when I'm talking to folks about, oh, I was in Israel, people immediately equate the state of Israel with the biblical Israel.
Yeah,
And
sure.
I did before I lived there. I didn't know. I thought, oh, biblical Israel. And so of course, we want before Israel at all
Mm,
costs, because this is, the Bible, people of the Bible. And the state of Israel is not biblical Israel. The state
right.
of Israel is entirely different. And so I think I learned that from living there and seeing that they call themselves, the only democracy in the Middle East.
Yeah.
And really, I witnessed, just as personally witnessed, and it's not what I read, what someone told me, that I saw on the news. I just went and personally witnessed people being treated as second-class citizens because they were not Jewish. They were not Israelis, Jewish Israelis.
Hmm.
So it's, I think it's you have to sometimes go and see something
Yeah.
before you know what's happening, and I think that would be the lesson. The biggest lesson. There's so many, but the
Yeah,
biggest
sure.
lesson I would apply to what's going on here today is we hear all kinds of things on the news. We hear so many things on the news, and we don't know what to believe, and that's what's so frustrating and frightening. I think is people are looking for who do we trust, who do we believe, where can we get news that is more objective and going and seeing things for ourselves that, I realize how challenging it is to do that.
Yeah.
Because it takes time and it takes money, and again, it's privilege. Um, but the more we can hear from people sort of on the ground in our own country, I think the more accurate our picture of ourselves will be.
What I hear in that is really kind of taking it from this abstract issue to more of a concrete and fleshed, right? I mean, that's kind of good advice for any issue, to move it away from kind of the tweets and the bumper stickers and the quick, like the memes we were talking about before, in seeing how complex, because I've been asked, Pastor, what do you think about this? And I'm like, man, there's been conflict there for ages, and I've been around for 49 years, and I've never been there. If and
Masters in January,
okay,
and
I, I yeah, I will have to. I'll have to take a look at that. Yeah, yeah. But I've always said, I'm on the side of the civilians, whether they're Palestinian or Israeli. They're just trying to live their life,
exactly.
and they're caught in this. Like I remember hearing something about this, reading about this, and saying, well, okay, if you take a look at like the Palestinians, they haven't had an election in like 25 years or something, like a whole generation have not had a chance to have a say in who their representation is. And then if you take a look at like the on the Israeli side, there's literally corruption going on, and Netanyahu has been charged with this, that, and the other thing, and so there's not representation of the average person in that. And so you've got all these people who haven't had a say, in this, and they're the victims oftentimes because they're just trying to live, and so like if I'm on anybody's side, that's the side I'm on, is people, and they're just. And that gets really complex. It's a unsatisfactory answer for people that we live in a society. Well, you got to choose sides, and it's like, well, then I choose the side of the poor and the
Right.
and the average people, and like that's what's going on there. So the other question I want to ask you about this is, how do you navigate, um, talking about Palestine, and what goes on, especially like in Gaza, what's going on when oftentimes you have folks that are going to just shut it down right away, because of what you were talking about before. Well, we have to support Israel, and like there's all these assumptions that go in with those type of statements. How do you navigate talking about, Palestine, especially in kind of U.S. church contexts?
Well, I'm not. I'm a big believer in building relationships.
Yeah,
And before I'm going to talk to anyone, I'm going to spend a lot of time listening, getting to know them, and building their trust in me, so that they at least know that I'm bringing my honest self to the conversation and the best information that I have. So I'm happy to speak when invited and when people want to listen, but I'm not. I don't wish to go and sort of force a conversation on people who are unwilling,
yeah,
because it doesn't accomplish anything. If
right,
someone doesn't want to hear something, if they don't want to be engaged in the conversation, I'm not going to argue about it. It's not beneficial to anyone.
yeah,
Um, if someone wants to know about my opinion of what's going on in the Middle East and Palestine and Gaza, I mean, my opinion is so small, um, so poorly informed. I'm happy to share it, but I really say I'm not an expert. I'm just not. I'm not an expert on any of this. And what I know, the longer I was there, and I wasn't there all that long. I was there for a year and a half.
yeah,
But the longer I was there, the less I knew and understood.
yeah,
Um, when I came in, I thought, oh, I've read a couple books. I'm in. I've got this. I've got this figured out. And the minute I would come down on one side of something, I would see the other
Yeah.
of images um, and pain and it's so much nuance and like you said, God's on the side of the victim, the hurting, the oppressed, always, and that shifts from time to time and moment to moment. It's different. I mean, I look at what's going on there, and what I don't understand is the horrors and atrocities of the Holocaust. It seems like some of those are now being visited upon, that the victims have become, in some ways, the perpetrators.
Hmm.
And that just is mind-boggling to me. And there's a museum there, the Jerusalem Museum, and at the very end of the museum, the and IS soldiers in the IDF, one of the first things they do is tour that museum, and they really drive home the Holocaust, and
Yeah.
not just the Holocaust,
Sure.
but the horrible anti-Semitism that has
Yeah.
just been, just unequivocally visited on the people of Israel and Jews forever. I mean, it's just been
Right.
horrible, and they just know it's
Yeah.
terrible,
Yeah.
but throughout this museum, that's driven home to them. Just remember how much you've been hurt. Remember how much you've been oppressed. Never again. Never again. Never again.
Yeah.
And then at the end, they sort of say, never again. They open the curtains and then you look out this huge window and you look out over the country, and it's like this is your country. We are going to defend this country. But the reality is there were people in that country before the state of Israel was established, and those people, they needed a home too. And so, what do? You drive them out. Um, it's tough.
Yeah.
And
Right.
there's so much nuance and so much pain. But I do want to say that I think what's going on in Gaza is genocidal, and I think that has been crossed every line. And I don't think that it's possible to say there's any justification whatsoever for the level of violence that is taking place in Gaza, and history will tell when it comes to that.
Yeah.
It's yeah.
Yeah. And it also, like you, I try to have a bit of a humble stance with it because I don't know the internal politics. I haven't been there. I mean, I've read some stuff, but there's not an area of expertise at all. And I appreciate, the Socratic line of the more I know, the more I don't know, which is so true about so many things, right? We're really confident in the things that we know just barely enough to think we know something, and then it gets deeper. The same thing has happened being here at Christ Lutheran with people that are in all sorts of situations, whether we're talking about drug and addiction, or gun violence, or trafficking, or immigration, or any of that stuff. I mean, we encounter all of that, and it puts you in a humble place of the only thing I have are the stories. I don't have the answers. I have stories, right? And I'm sure you have plenty of stories as well from your time there. Um, this kind of leads me into talk briefly. At seminary, I had a class with you. You taught preaching, and it was in the divide in the church. And it was great, great class. And oh, thank you. You don't have to just say that because. So I want to spend a little bit of time with this because, there's the easy questions of, well, how do you preach and this, that, and the other thing. And I think you partially already answered this in the sense of, it's about relationship, right? You're not going to get up and preach a sermon that is going to just go flat, because you're going to say things that are going to offend people, whether it's whether it's true or not. And this is where like I see this kind of getting back to memes. Like, people make these statements of, well, if you're not hearing this on Sunday,
Right. Oh my gosh.
oh, and I'm like, oh man, like, do you even know what it's like to be a preacher?
Context. Context.
Yeah, and that was a big thing I remember learning from you is the like really understand the context. I feel fortunate here, and we were talking about this before the show of like I feel here, I don't have to sugarcoat or however you want it with the people are just hungry for it. Um, I'm wondering about holding space for like how would you honor holding space and really kind of recognizing where people are and knowing that oftentimes in most congregational settings there's a whole range of where people are. Maybe it's what's a way to hold space in an honorable way that is faithful to the gospel and yet also kind of here's where people are, because I think in some sense that's all of us, right? I mean, God doesn't. If I've got God agreeing with me on everything, then I've just replaced God with myself. And so I know there's plenty of things that I am not in alignment with God on. And that's a challenge, and it's a beautiful thing. And I know, like I remember in my previous context, I had somebody who didn't like what I had preached, and I ended up saying, "Why do you come here? Do you come here to hear God's word and just be comforted, or are you open to being challenged?" So I don't know. There's a whole lot that I just threw at you, but like, how do you hold sacred space for folks so that they not so that they just stay where they are, but can be open and moving towards being in alignment with God.
So we have to move together, right? We have to realize, a lot of times I will just kind of put the caveat out there right away and say, I'm as guilty of I struggle with these things too. I struggle with them, right? I mean, let's talk about racism. Um, I don't like I didn't like to be called I don't like to think of myself as a person who is um, racist, even in the systemic sense. The systemic racism for people who are listening and your listeners probably don't understand, but I mean, the fact that we're not intentionally, actively racist, but we're passively racist because we just don't even know.
Right.
Where we sure. Well, when someone would say to me, "Oh, you're participating in a racist system," you go, "I don't. No, I'm not. I don't want to. I don't. No, I'm not. No, I'm not." Um, and and then the more I learn and read and say, "Oh, okay, now I see." It's the stories. It's like you
Yeah.
said. It's often it's telling the stories. Audrey Lorde said, "We need to tell the stories we don't want us."
Mm.
We need to write stories that are so strong, tell stories that are so strong that they haunt us. And we can't just let them go on. They haunt us.
Yeah.
And I think that as preachers, if we can tell stories, we don't have to make that's the parable. We don't have to. Jesus was doing it. We don't have to say, well, did you know that this is happening, and you should do this and that. No, when we come to these stories and we tell them, people sometimes hear the story and it strikes them. I think about um, different times when I've heard stories that they've just been so clear, and I said, "Oh, it's okay, it's this." So I think that we telling the stories to folks, listening to people's stories, and being humble enough to say, these are things that I struggle with too. I'm not better than you. I'm not more advanced, more spiritually. It's like you said, Matt. We are all short. We all fall short of the glory of God. And sometimes explicitly naming that
Yeah.
saying, this is how I didn't really like to be called systemic racist. I didn't know what that meant. It made me upset.
Yeah.
But then when I think about when I grew up and how things were, and I realized, yeah, this is
Yeah.
but staying with them and struggling to walk forward together, um, I think that sometimes that's the best way we can be in community.
Yeah.
I remind myself that the opposite of faith isn't doubt.
Right.
The opposite of faith is certainty,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yep. There's a great book by Peter Enns, who's a theologian. The title of it is The Sin of Certainty.
There you go.
So he makes that same argument of, it's not faith and doubt actually work together. Certainty, if you're certain, then you don't need faith because you know.
Right.
Yeah, I appreciate what you're saying about all of that. I mean, a couple weeks ago, a few weeks ago, I was supplying at a congregation that has been a mission support for Christ Lutheran, and I'd shared a couple of stories, and these were
Yeah. Oh, beautiful.
there's some pretty heavy stories, and I try to not lay it all on because I also don't know where especially in congregations that I don't know. I don't know who's gone through like sexual abuse and this, that, and the other thing. So you kind of keep it general, but at the same time, like these are stories of people, and I think about like I'll pull up here on the street, and there's a car in front of me, and there's a woman who's working the corner, and then she gets in, and off they go, and I just sit there, and I'm like, what can I do? I can't do anything. It just feels this helplessness in that moment, and knowing like this is not a good situation, and what can I do, and this is what drives us to keep doing what we do here, and doing it in an ineffective and imperfect, and at the same time, then there's those moments in which you get this glimpse of what, right, that is just like this, woo, wow, that's why we're here, right? Yeah, so I really appreciate what you're saying. We got about 10 minutes, so I do want to get to, maybe this is the happier side of the subject, of philanthropy
Oh, yes.
and church. Kind of, this has been the good lead in this. You have a lot of experience with this, and I know a lot of this is. I think all that we've talked about has really kind of been this kind of interesting lead into. We were just talking about sharing stories and about relationship. I mean, that's is really what
Fundraising.
that's all fundraising. Which the core of it, what I always learned was you're what you're offering is a vision of what the world can be, right? And what you're trying to do is you're trying to find out, is that what this person is also in alignment with? And if it is, well then, hey, let's do this together. And if it's not, well then it's not about forcing somebody, hey, you got to give us money. It's about, okay, maybe we're not the right ones, but hey, you ought to talk with so and so, or best of luck in finding that, or maybe you should start something, or whatever the case may be. Maybe the question I want to ask is, and this could be too broad of a question, but what do you think churches and nonprofits need to unlearn when it comes to philanthropy and giving and all of that? What do they need to unlearn? What are the bad stuff that they're holding on to? Maybe the assumptions, the habits, whatever. Because there's lots of things out there about how to do it and go about it. But I think there's a lot of the challenge has to do with, we have these habits and we have these assumptions, and there's a lot that we have to get rid of in order to really open us up. Does that make sense?
Sure, sure, I think so. And I think, two things I'd like to highlight. One is that I think philanthropy, I always, I talk about philanthropy and I say the Greek word philos and anthropos, so it's love of people, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yep.
when I say philanthropy, my whole job is about the love of people.
Mm.
Everything that I do because I love people.
Yeah.
And because I feel called by Jesus to love people, to
Right.
have more than just cash in the operating plate, although it definitely includes dollars.
Right. Sure.
I think if people are, if you're talking about stewardship and philanthropy, and having a broader vision of it than just, oh, well, how can we do that annual, fund
Right.
drive
Right.
or whatever. Philanthropy, it opens their minds and their hearts. And we can spend a lot of time, like I said, talking about, how were you generous this week? Well, you could say, oh, I was generous when I let that person cut in front of me in traffic. I was
Right.
generous when I let the person go ahead of me in line. I was generous when I answered, the phone and whatever. So there's lots of ways to be generous with making, we make space to be generous. And so I think talking to congregations, I think congregations and nonprofits need to learn that generosity is about more than money. And then when it comes to the financial part, I think we need to realize that it's fun, it's
Mm.
joyful.
Yeah.
You know, they say money can't buy happiness, but when I give money away, I almost feel like I'm buying happiness.
Yeah.
I know that sounds crazy. It's like the only way money can make you happy is if you give it away.
Right.
It just, I don't know anyone who gives and after having given says, now I feel terrible.
Right.
After giving, people just feel, it's like whatever it is that they're giving, they feel wonderful and good and happy. And so I always want to say to people, if you want your money to buy you happiness, give it away.
Yeah.
And I think these kind of two basic ideological pieces we have to develop, or to let go of the thought that talking about money and fundraising is oh, people say I would hate to have your job. Time in the world. My job is so rewarding, so joyful.
Yeah.
And I think that so folks need to realize that it's about more than money, and also when we do talk about money, it can be very joyful.
Yeah.
So I think letting go of those pieces, and then I think sometimes churches and nonprofits can take, especially churches, can take some really good lessons from nonprofits about how to do faithful fundraising, and I think part of that includes showing gratitude for
Mm.
people who support. Because I think about people who donate to the school where I work, and we we try within 48 hours to have a thank you note in the mail to them. Now, if someone gives online, they're going to get a thank you email. They're going to get a note in the mail. They're going to be added to our donor recognition program. This is if you give $5.
Yeah. Sure. Right. Right.
So we're not talking like huge gifts. If you give $5, you're going to be,
Right.
you're going to get an email, you're going to get a letter in the mail, and you're going to be added to our recognition program, and you may get some other stuff, some other pieces too. And so people feel appreciated. They feel like, oh, I gave something and it was recognized. And it's not that people are giving so that they can be recognized, but people want to know that what they are giving is matters and
Yeah.
there's an impact and that someone sees them, right? We want to be seen. We want
Yep.
people to see us and know. And so um, I think in the church, a lot of times people just put their money in the plate or their envelope in or do their online donation or whatever. And oh, we don't want the pastor to know how much anyone's
Right.
giving. The pastor doesn't know if they gave. Maybe the money counters know that they gave. But then the next thing they get as far as gratitude is maybe at the end of the year a statement saying you gave and here's how much you gave. Maybe
Yeah.
so I think we could be a little better at showing gratitude and doing it in a way. We're not trying to elevate people because they're giving a lot. And say, well, you're giving most of church, so you get the front too.
Right.
I have seen that.
Right. Right.
And that's kind of scary. But just being celebratory and thanking people when they do make that commitment to help.
Yeah.
I think that's
I think one of the reasons why we're happy when we give money away is because it no longer has power over us,
yes. Oh, that's so yes, yes. Yep.
right? Because we actually had power over it. We could control what to do with it, as opposed to what happens so often is that money makes the decisions for so many things, right? We got to have so much in order to pay for this and 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 this, and then it's like. So I want to ask you one last question, and you got like 3 minutes to answer it. Good. Likewise. So what gives you hope right now?
People like you, Matt.
Oh.
Really, I mean it. I mean, of course, the pat answer is Jesus and God, but
That's the mandatory answer for a pastor.
to see that lived out in
Yeah.
people in the community,
Yeah.
um, people who are stepping up, stepping forward, holding on, hanging in, um, persisting, resisting, um, refusing to give up. And I that gives me hope. And in some ways, I feel like although it is a very challenging time
Yeah.
to be a Christian in the church, to try to do all of this, it's sharpening us,
Mm-hmm.
it's pushing us, and creating bonds and creating ideas, and we're forging new paths, and we are strengthening each other. Like,
Yeah.
I mean, we're there's hope
Yeah.
because of because of God's work through us, through each person. So
Yeah.
thank you for doing what you do,
Well, thank you.
and thank you for encouraging me to continue.
Yeah.
And all you are such an encourager. So,
Well, thank you. And when I think about what you were talking about, I'm recalling I'm losing track of a name, but there was a colleague of ours who talked about this as a time of pruning. Like get the idea of pruning, right? And so you not only cut away the dead, but the stuff that is not helping to enhance life, right? And so that could mean in a literal sense, but it also means like within us of getting rid of the stuff that isn't really oriented towards life. And that can be in a wide variety of different ways. And that could mean relationships, it could mean, beliefs, it could be whatever the case may be. But it's that pruning away. And then what happens is like if you're pruning a bush, come back 2 years later and the thing is larger than it was before and it's healthier because it needed to have that stuff cut away. And so that's what just kind of what you were talking about, just kind of sparked that image. And so, yeah, I see this as very a challenging time, but at the same time, I'm excited to see what comes as a result of the pruning that has been going on
same,
in it. So,
absolutely.
well, Angela, thank you so much for your time. And I really appreciate the conversation and the insight and the wisdom. You are a blessing in so many different ways, and I just thank you so much for taking some time to come on.
So are you. You're my friend.